So welcome to the comprehensive CSS course for beginners. This is the perfect course for beginners. If you have no idea about what is CSS, I'm going to explain everything in detail. Okay, so let's start first. What is CSS? So here you can see on my screen, this is the very famous Google search page. You know how well it looks. It is arranged very well. You can see very nice, beautiful search bar here. Then we have nice buttons. If you hover on them, you see this animation comes up. And then same, you can see there is some animation comes up when we hover on these buttons, and you can see on the right side is my image. There's some text arranged. Everything looks real nice, and you can see in the bottom there's some menu items. So this all arrangement happens because of CSS. What if this page doesn't have any CSS? This page will look something like this. You can see the text here is not organized. It's just very basic text, and we have these circles. Then we have my profile picture, which is squared picture. And then search icon is so big and the text bar is so bad, and the buttons are basic. And all these are HTML elements. They're not CSS applied on these things. So work of CSS is to beautify a page, apply proper margins, apply proper width and height for the buttons, and apply the font families, how the font looks like. You can see the font here looks like very bad. Here it looks very much nicer. And then there's a nice profile picture here. And here you can see it is not properly arranged. So I hope you understand what is CSS. So CSS is short form for Cascading Style Sheets, which you can understand is style the web pages, and it is used to style and layout web pages. It controls the look and feel of HTML element. To learn CSS, either you can use by default Notepad app on your computer, or you can use a fancy editor like Visual Code. No matter what editor you choose, you just find a suitable editor where you can write some CSS code. Okay, so you must be thinking like what else we need. So we need an editor to write the code, and then the second thing we don't need is a web browser. You can open any web browser of your choice, whether it is Mozilla, Chrome browser, Internet Explorer, Opera, whichever browser you want to choose, which is available on your computer, you can choose the web browser. Okay, so I'm going to open these both things side by side so you can see the code we are making on the left side and the changes on the right side. So to write CSS, first of all, we need to write HTML, because CSS is used to beautify HTML code. So without HTML, CSS cannot stand. And if you're a beginner, you do not know so much about HTML, I already created one course about it, which is 30 minutes short tutorial. You can watch that video. But for the people who have zero idea about HTML, don't worry about it. This tutorial is perfect for anybody, whether you know HTML or you don't know HTML. Okay, so to write HTML, first of all, you write something like this HTML, because it's HTML page, and then you have to finish HTML inside a tag like this. So in HTML, these things are called tags. For example, if we write a paragraph in HTML, we will write P, and then we will write this is a paragraph, and then we close it with a P tag. Generally, there are more things we need to write for HTML pages, but for beginners, it is easy to understand like this. So what we're going to do now, we're going to click on File and then Save As, and then we'll save this page as index.html. I'm going to save it on desktop. If I minimize the browser, you can see this is the page on my screen. You can just directly right click on this page and you can see this page in the browser. Or what you can do, no matter which browser you're using, you can open the browser and you can drag this page and drop to that browser. So you can see this is our code. So this is the code we write in our notepad, and this is how it looks on a web browser. So this is very super basic HTML elements. Now let's talk about CSS. For example, this paragraph text, if I want to change the color of this text, I'm going to use CSS. So how we can write the CSS is style, and then write equals, and then single quotes or double quotes. And then you can write color colon red, and then semicolon. Then you can save this page using Ctrl S on your computer, or you can click on save. But Ctrl S is the easier way and saves you a lot of time. So I save this page, and now if I refresh, you can see the text is red color. And when you write CSS directly inside the HTML element, it is called inline CSS. But imagine you have hundreds of elements on the page, and then you're gonna write all the CSS inside those elements. It's gonna make things really complicated. So what else we can do? Instead of writing all the CSS inside this HTML elements, we can write in one single place. For example, in a HTML page, what you can do, you can define a new tag which is called head tag, start, and then you end the head tag. And inside this head tag, you can write style, and then you end with a style tag. And now all the CSS we will add between these two tags. And guys, one more thing, in HTML, You need one more tag. So this is our head tag. So in head tag, whatever you write, it is for browser. That will not be displayed here on the page. So whatever you want to display on the page here, it is written in a body tag. So you can write body and then we can close the body tag here. We'll keep it very simple. So I'm trying to give you like very basic information about these things. And also guys, whenever you write some code, there is a thing called indentation. Indentation which makes code look easy to read. So for example, what we can do, we can move this head a little bit to the right side like this. And then this head tag and also. And now because style is inside head tag, so I'm gonna indent it a little bit more on the right side. Same thing I will do the end style tag. So now you can see this head tag start and head tag end, they're on the same level and the style is on the same level. Same thing we can do with body tag also. Body tag we're gonna move it on the right side. Same level as head tag. And because paragraph is inside the body tag, we're gonna move it a little bit to the right. And you can see here head start end and body start end, they're on the same level because they both are the direct children of HTML tag. So this is a really easy example. There's some more things which should be added to the head, but for beginners this will totally work. So now if I remove this style from here and now I save the page, if I refresh the page on the right, you can see the style is removed. Okay, now as I told you, we need to write some CSS inside this style tag. So how we can write? We can write simply color red. Remember how we've written in the inline, but now it is written here. It is not applied to this p tag. So how we can target this p tag? So this is called selector. We need to select the element from the page and then we need to apply this CSS rule to that selected element. So what we can do, we can write the name of HTML element here. For example, for paragraph, we can write P and then we'll write curly braces start and then curly braces ends. And guys, make sure to add a semicolon in the end. So now you can see the paragraph text will have color red. If I save the file, now if I refresh, you can see the paragraph is red now. So this is called selector and this is called CSS property color and this is called the value which is red. And this one thing is called CSS rule. So guys, congratulations, you have successfully learned your first CSS rule. How was it? Was it really easy? I always appreciate your feedback guys, so please make sure if you give the feedback in the comment of this video so that I will be able to help you much better, and if I'm missing something, I'll try to improve my content on this channel. Let me show you one more way to apply CSS. So we learned whenever we write CSS inside the HTML element, it's called like this way. Like whenever we write style equal to color red, like this is called inline CSS. And whenever we write like this, it is called internal CSS. But because inline CSS was making things very complicated, so we remove the CSS from here and we add it here. But there is another way which make things even more easier. What is that way? To add this CSS in a different file. So how we can do that? We can create a new file and then this code from here, we can just copy this code. You don't need to copy the style here. You just cut this code from here and we can write this code here. P red. And now we're going to save this file as style.css on your desktop and save this file. If I minimize the browser, you can see the file is saved here. Okay, so now the file is saved here and the rule for the color is here. But how we can link this file inside this file? And now we don't need this style tag here because we are writing the CSS inside this style file, which is dedicated CSS file for index.html. So for that, inside head tag, we're going to write link rel is equal to style sheet, which says we have this style sheet, and in href we need to give the location of that file because you can see they're here on my desktop, so they both are in the same folder. So we can just directly write here style.css and then we save the file. And now if I refresh the page, you can see the paragraph is not red because I have done a mistake here guys. Make sure, a lot of people do this mistake. The file is saved here, it's called style.css and the name I added here, it is styles.css. So I'll just correct my mistake. Now if I save the page, now if I refresh the browser, you can see the paragraph is red now. So when we write CSS in a different file and then we include inside the HTML file, it is called external CSS. For this tutorial, let's use the internal style sheet because it is really easy to stay on the same page and you can understand things much easier way. The right way is to use external style sheet when you write the whole CSS in a new file like this one. Just for this video, you're going to use the internal CSS. Okay, let's copy back our basic code we have written for p tag. So this is the tag here, and then we refresh, make sure everything's good. Okay. And guys, this CSS rule is for browser. It's not to display here on the page. And everything we write inside the body tag is being displayed here. So you can see this rule is applied by the browser on this body element. So everything you write in the body will be displayed here on the page, and everything you write inside the head tag, that is some instructions for the browser. It can be CSS code or JavaScript code. Let's move to another important thing, which is CSS selectors. So like you learn, we can just directly write the name of HTML element to give it some CSS property. What else we can do? We can use classes. Why we need to use classes? Let me explain you. For example, if there is a heading on the page, h1, heading 1, heading 1, then close it with h1 tag, and I save this page. If I refresh, you can see the heading 1 is here. But I want this heading should also look red in color. There are multiple ways to do it. For example, I can write h1 and then curly braces start, curly braces end, and then color red. Now if I refresh, you can see this heading is red too. But you can see we write the same code twice. So what we can do, we can use classes and IDs. So in that case, what we can use class. So what we can do here, we can just write class equals red text, and we can add the same class to any element on the page. Now instead of giving CSS properties to different HTML elements, we can remove everything and class. So we'll write red text and then curly braces start and ends color colon red, and then now if I refresh it, you can see it is black. The color is not applied. Why? Because when you target a class, you need to add a dot before the class name. This is called the class selector. This is not HTML element. So whenever you target HTML element, for example directly h1 or p, you don't add the dot. But because this is a class name, you need to add the dot. If I refresh the page now, you can see thing is red here now. Like class, you can also give IDs. For example, I can say ID is equal to small text. And guys, make sure on a page IDs are unique. You cannot give same ID to multiple elements. Like we give same class here to paragraph and heading, but for IDs they're unique. You cannot give same IDs to multiple elements. And if I want to target ID, for IDs we use hash, and then we can write small text, and then we can write font size colon 34 pixels, and we save it. If I refresh the page now, you can see this paragraph is so big now. So this is how you target IDs with hash, and with dot you target the classes. So these are called HTML selectors. And if you want to target HTML element directly, you can just target P, and then you can write some CSS rule, whatever you want inside these things. There is one more selector which is called group selector. For example, if I want to apply red color to both paragraph and h1, what I can do, I can write here P, which will directly address this HTML element, and then comma, and then h1. And now if I save the page, you refresh it, you can see the color red is applied to both the things. So this is another way to target the HTML elements and apply CSS on them. But don't worry too much about it. Slowly by slowly, when you try to improve and learn more CSS, you will make your own project, you will understand all these things. Don't worry too much about these things if you don't understand it now. Okay, I remove this. Okay, now let's talk about very important thing, which is font families. So font families are very important. For example, if I want to apply font family to the paragraph, what I can do, paragraph, I will write p tag, and then I will write curly brace start, curly brace end, then write font family. And you can define different font families. If you don't understand about what is the name of this font family, don't worry about it. Just to understand, this is how you apply font families. If you save the page, if I refresh, you can see the font families change. There are multiple font families available. There's so many available from the Google, but there's some default font families. It is really fun to try different font families to make your text look more impressive. Also, you can define multiple CSS rules for one selector. For example, if for the paragraph, if I want to apply the second rule, I do not need to write P again, then curly braces. I can just start writing after the semicolon. So this whole one is one CSS rule for this paragraph, and then I can start writing here. For example, I can say font size, then I say 26 pixel. If I save the page, if I refresh now, you can see this text is much bigger. And also, just to make things easy to read, what we do usually, we can give a line break like this. So we can read all the rules easily. And then same curly braces, we indent to the right. You can also make it bolder or lighter or slimmer. For example, you can say font weight colon bold, then semicolon. If I save page, now if I refresh it, you can see this is bolder now. Now let's learn about aligning the text. For example, if I want to align this text to the center, we can use text align CSS property. So what we need to do is, we need to write here text align center. Now if I refresh, you can see that paragraph is in the center. Instead of center, I can write right. Now if I refresh, you can see the text is aligned to the right. And if I want left, you can write to left. Let's take one more example. If I will add a link tag here, for example, I write ahref google.com, go to Google, then I end this. So this is how you write a link tag. If you just save the page, and if I refresh here right side, you can see this is a link which will go to Google. This is called anchor tag. So you just need to write a text which is visible here on the page, and then you can write the link where you want this page to go inside the href, inside the opening anchor tag. So now if I want to apply all these rules, what I can do, I can just copy this everything, and then I can just write it here, and instead of targeting P, I can target A, and I save the page. If I refresh, you can see we target all these things here. But let's little bit change it. Instead of font size 26, let's make it 36, and instead of bold, let's make it thin. And then now refresh. You can see it is thinner and bigger. And you can see there's a line here. So all the links have by default line. If you want to remove the line, you can give a CSS property called text decoration, and then you can say none. So now if I save and refresh, you can see the line is gone. So we say text decoration is none. Let's remove the CSS. So page will have less text and it is easy to read on the page. And now since we removed the CSS of P, if I refresh, you can see this font family, the size should be gone now. You can see it is gone. It is by default. HTML code is read by the web browser. Guys, how it is going? I hope you are understanding everything. Nothing is too complicated until now. And guys, if you're new to the channel, please make sure like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that. And I try to make these kind of easy tutorials for you to make you explain everything in most easy way. And if you appreciate that, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And please share this video with somebody who wants to learn about HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And there's so many other important useful tutorials on my channel which will really help you to create your website. Or if you're a blogger, then this channel is really useful for your blogging journey too. Okay, let's move on to the tutorial. So for now, let's remove all this code. Now we'll introduce a very important element which is called div. So div is kind of a box which we use to create the web designs. And then it starts with div tag, and then we end with div tag end. Just to target this, we can write a class is equal to new div 1. If I refresh the page, you can see everything is gone and the div is not showing because there is no text inside the div. So we can target this class by writing dot class and then curly braces start and end, and then we can give a width and height to the div. So for example, I say width 100% and then semicolon, and then I say height 100% then semicolon. You refresh, you still cannot see because the background of this div is white. So what we can do, we can use another CSS property which is called background color. Guys, if you use Visual Studio, these things are really easy. For now, just say yellow and then semicolon, and if I save and if I refresh the page, you can see whole page is yellow. And you can see because we say 100% width, 100% height. So this 100% width and height means the 100% height of the page and 100% width of the page. And instead of 100%, we can use 100px width and then 100px height. So what is the difference between 100 pixel and 100%? So 100% you can see it's the complete width and height of the page. But when you change to pixel, now if I refresh, you can see it is a 100 pixel width and height. So pixel we use to define the certain height or width or certain size on the page. When we write percentage, it is the percentage for the whole page. For example, if I change it to 200 pixel and height to 200 pixel, save this page. If I refresh it, you can see the div is bigger right now. And background color also you can use multiple ways. You can write blue. If I change it to blue, refresh, you can see it is blue now. This background color value you can give so many different ways. You can give like HEX value, RGB value, but that's for another day for beginners. You can just try practicing your projects with writing the color of the name like blue, red, yellow, magenta, light blue. They works real nice. Or you can just write green. They works real nice. For beginners, it is totally fine. Once you become more advanced, you can use the hex and RGB colors. The another important thing in CSS would be borders. So what we can do, we can give a border to this box, or you can say to this div. So to give border, we can just write border and then 1 pixel solid and then semicolon. And now if I refresh, you can see there is a border here, but this is in black color, you cannot see it. So let's do one thing, let's give some other color. So I'll say red. Now if I refresh it, you can see the border is red, but it is still very small. So let's do one thing, make it bigger. So we can write here 2 pixel and then refresh. You can see there is a border here. So this is how you give the border. Instead of solid, you can write here dotted, which will change the border. You can see now it is dotted. There are different types of border you can add to your HTML elements. Another important thing would be to make the corner rounded. Have you seen sometime you see the buttons, they are kind of rounded. So how you can do that? By using border radius property. So how you can write that? You can just write border radius and then 5 pixel for example, and then I save the page. If I refresh, you can see it is rounded. If I write it 50 pixel, if I save the page, you can see it is much more rounded. And then how you add the border radius, make them rounded like the buttons. You remember we seen here on google.com, you can see this text box, this is a little bit rounded because they have applied the border radius to this text box. That's why this text box is rounded. So for that we use this border radius property in CSS. Let's address the next very important things in CSS, which is called margins. To understand this better way, let's do one thing. Let's create one more div and we'll name it new div 2. And we'll just copy this CSS one more time. We'll paste it here. Just let's remove the border radius. It's not doing a lot of work. It's just adding more code to the page for now. So remove this border radius. And we're going to change the class name here, div 2. Let's make it 300 pixel. 300 pixel and change the color from green to red. And save the page. If I refresh, you can see we have two boxes here. One this first box, second is this new box. I think red is very too harsh for eyes, so let me change it to magenta. Okay, much better. Or maybe to blue. This looks much better now. They're not so much harsh on the eyes. Okay, let's do one more thing. You can see on the top there is some spacing, and there's from the left also there's some spacing. So this by default spacing in browser for any HTML document. To remove that, we just need to write here body. We're going to target the body element because by default the body, it has a margin and padding applied. So you're going to add body, padding and margin 0 pixel. If I save, if I refresh, you can see now they're perfect. There is no default margin or padding applied. So now you must be thinking about, I just applied the rule here where I was talking about margin padding. I wanted to explain you. Okay, I did this because now we can understand this better. Okay, now let's try to understand margins and paddings. For example, for div 1, I will say margin 10 pixel. If I save it, if I refresh the page, you can see the 10 pixel of margin applied to the top right, bottom and the left of this div. Same thing I can do with the div 2. If I give it 10 pixel margin, or let's do one thing, let's give it 20 pixel margin. So I get 20 pixel margin. If I refresh the page, you can see now this div got 20 pixel margin from everywhere, left, right, top, right. So this is called margin. When you create a space around a element. And now what is padding? Padding is when you create a space inside an element. For example, to understand this, let's do one thing. Let's write a text inside both this div. This is a new text for div 1. And for this one, this is a new text for div 2. Let's save it. If I refresh it, you cannot really see the text. So let's make it white. And how we can make it white? Just apply color white for both the div. And now if I refresh, you can see it is white. So if I change the, for example, if I say 30 pixel and then I refresh the page, you can see now it has 30 pixel around this div. But what is padding? If I write padding 10 pixel, then I save the page. If I refresh, you can see now this space applied inside the div. So now everything which is inside the div, it is spaced out 10 pixel from top, right, bottom and left. You can see it is much bigger space because we made this div 200 pixel tall. You can see here we write 300 pixel. If I just remove this rule, save the page, if I refresh it, now the 10% padding to the top, right, bottom, left. You will say, okay, on the right is much more because we have given it a width. Okay, let's bring back the height. So I hope you understand what is the padding and margin. So margin is space around the element, like outside, and padding is space inside the element. You can see whatever comes inside this div. For example, you can add a p tag inside and then p and If I save, now if I refresh, this is the right way. Now you can see whenever I write P, it moved a little bit on the top, because by default there is a padding for paragraph tags is applied by the browser. There is a property called display, and we can use inline to use content inline, or we can use block to keep them in a block, or what we can do, we can use display none, which will disappear the element. For example, if I apply display none to this div, first div, if I refresh the page, you can see this div is not visible on the page, so display is gone. This complete video can be created on the display properties. Let me remove this. We can continue back. Like display, we have another property, position. You can give multiple values to it: static, relative, fixed, absolute, or sticky. For example, if I give fixed and then I refresh the page, you can see it is fixed now. No matter how much I can move the page. For example, if I give page the height of 5000 pixel, if I save the page, if I refresh it, now you can see we are scrolling bar here. So page is much bigger. If I scroll the page like this, you can see everything is moving, but this div is fixed here. You can see the green div. We apply the position fixed. Or what we can do, we can apply it absolute. Then we refresh this. If I scroll the page, you can see it is not fixed. But you saw one thing. If I remove the position absolute, now if I refresh, now these divs are on the top and bottom. But when I apply position absolute, if I refresh, the green div become on the top of the blue div. So what happens when you apply position absolute? It becomes fluid. It says to the next element, okay, I am here, but you can also even come to this area where I exist. Again, position is very important property, and a separate video could be created on position. But for now, try to understand, we can use different values: absolute, static, relative, fixed. Okay, now let's talk about very important property which is called Z index. For example, if I write Z index, the green box is on top, the blue is on the bottom. But instead of 1, what I can do, if I make this -1, then I refresh here, you can see the box is behind this one because this has less Z index. So Z index we use to stack elements on the top of each other, and which one should be visible by Z index. For now, it might look that it is not very important property, but this is really important property in CSS. Another very nice property could be opacity. For example, if I add opacity 0.5 to this blue box, save the page, if I refresh it, you can see it becomes a little bit transparent. Opacity can be maximum to 1. If it is 1, you can see the element completely. But if you reduce the opacity to, for example, 0.9, the element become a little bit transparent. And if you make opacity 0, if you refresh, you can see the element is gone. Element is here, but you cannot see it because the opacity is 0. It is different than display none. The element is there, but you cannot see it because opacity is 0. Let's change back opacity to 1. Guys, if you're still watching this video, I really appreciate if you can like the video, subscribe to the channel. That will really help this channel grow and really boost my morale. I understand you guys learning all this amazing stuff in most easy way, and that really make me happy. So if you're new to the channel, you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with somebody who wants to learn HTML, CSS and JavaScript and so many other things about web development and blogging. Okay, let's go back to the tutorial. Okay, for now let's remove one div from here, and also from here we don't need 2 divs. Also, I remove the width because we want complete width for this div. We remove absolute, and also we remove Z index. We don't need that. Okay, perfect. Looks nice. Okay, let's talk about a very important thing which is really important for all the advanced web development, which is called media queries. So media queries are used to make your design responsive. Why I mean responsive? For example, you can see this website looks like on a bigger screen, not like really big desktop, but like an iPad. Or for example, you can say if I make this smaller like this, this will look something like this on a small screen, like a mobile device. Or if I extend it full screen, you can see this is how our website will look like somewhere on a bigger screen of a laptop or a desktop. Okay, so we use media queries to manipulate the design, or you can say to change the design. Not manipulation, it's not the right word, but you can say we use media queries to change the look and feel of the elements depending on the screen size. And whenever screen size changes, the elements changes depending on the media screens. For example, if this text is really small, if let's give a font size of 44 pixel, you can see this looks really big. But if I change the screen size to small screen, you can see this text looks really big, and that is not the best approach. So in responsive design, what we can do, we can make this text smaller, so it looks perfect on the small screen, and for that we use media queries. Let me show you how we can do that using media query. So to write a media query, you can just write @ then media, then rounded bracket starts and end, and inside that we want to define the until when we want to apply this rule. For example, just for mobile devices, the general rule is max width colon 480 pixels, and then we can write curly brace start and end. So now everything we want to write up to 480 pixel can be written here, and then we apply to until this width. Let me show you. For example, I just copy this font size here, and then because we want to apply to this div here, you can see, and the div has class new div 1. So we'll write new div 1 and then curly brace start and ends, and we say font size instead of 44 we can say 22 pixel. We save it. Now if I refresh this, you can see, so less than 480 pixel, the size will be smaller. In case I open website on a bigger screen, you can see the text increases. On a iPad or a laptop or a desktop, it will be always 44 pixel, which is the general instruction for this font size. But whenever it comes less than 480 pixel mobile screen, then this rule will be applied, and this is called media query. Let's take another example. We want to change the background color, so we can say I just copy green from here, and then we can paste it here. Instead of green, if I say red, if I refresh the page, you can see it's red, but only for screen until 480 pixels. If I make it bigger like this, you can see the color and the text size is changing because we are using this media query. For beginners, it's really important to learn media queries because that's really important for modern web design. Your website should be responsive and looks good on every kind of screen size. I hope you get a lot of information from this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that, and please share this video with somebody who wants to learn web design or blogging. And watch these two important videos on screen to learn more about HTML, CSS and JavaScript.